Hi, I'm Mike Papantonio, and this is America's Lawyer. Major corporations and their lobbyists have found a loophole and allows them to wine and dine members of Congress without violating any federal laws prohibiting those activities. It's a stretch. The FBI, well, they've been caught again spying on American citizens that were protesting against the military-industrial complex, killing natural resources, basically. And disgraced former Senator Bob Menendez is begging a judge to toss out his felony convictions because he says that Congress allows for such things, allows for that kind of corruption. All that and more, it's coming up. Don't go anywhere. America's Lawyer starts right now. Many years ago, laws were passed that prevented corporations and their lobbyists from engaging with lawmakers directly through expensive dinners and lavish vacations, but it didn't last long. They found loopholes, and they've been exploiting those loopholes for years. I've got Farron Cousins with me to talk about that. Farron, every time we thought 2007, we thought, oh, finally, Congress is doing something about K Street. Well, I looked at that. Even the limitations they had on that were meaningless. But now they've taken this to such new heights. It's crazy.
Well, and a lot of people forget what happened. Well, or maybe they even weren't around in politics in 2007. We were.
Yeah.
We covered it extensively.
Yeah.
The Jack Abramoff,
Yeah.
Ralph Reed,
Yeah.
all just money flowing so flagrantly from the lobbyists directly to the politicians that the politicians said, okay, we gotta at least pretend to do something because everybody's watching us.
Yeah.
So they passed these laws that say, okay, lobbyists, you can no longer send us on trips. You can no longer send our staffers on trips. No more, that's not allowed. You cannot pay for it. But if you have a nonprofit, the nonprofit can absolutely pay for that, and that is the loophole that these lobbyists have been exploiting since day one of that legislation being passed, to the point where Politico pointed out there have been over 17,000 trips for congressional staffers paid for by these so-called nonprofits, where they show up and they party with lobbyists at a luxury resort.
Okay, what they do is they try to make it look like they are educational.
Yeah,
We're going to come and we're going to educate you about the medical crisis in America. We're going to talk to you and have speakers, all the sides of the issue, make a presentation. And so these staffers, of course, again, I can't stress enough, these people come to Congress sometimes, House of Representatives. They get there with holes in their shoes. They are so poor, they've not accomplished a damn thing in their life. And all of a sudden, I mean, they're really nobodies. But a party says, hey, why don't you run for whatever, House of Representatives? Why don't you do that? And all of a sudden they show up in Washington, and some corporation say, wait, let me get this right. You're going to let me take my wife to this vacation in Hawaii where you're going to buy us all these extravagant meals and spend all this money on us? Really, you're going to do that? Yeah. Now, we don't want to talk to you about politics. We want to just educate you. Yeah, but we're going to do that.
Right, and the education is basically the education you would get from George Orwell's 1984. And what it is they'll take you in there and say, hey, healthcare in America is bad. But not because we've let insurance companies run it or corporations run it. They're saying it's bad because we have too many regulations.
Yeah.
You see, the FDA is making us wait years before we can put these new pharmaceuticals on the market. And
or the banking industry. Boy,
right.
Huge push on the banking industry.
Yeah,
right?
or fossil fuel industry.
Yes.
And all three of those are literally on the board of one of these top nonprofits that's sending these staffers on 1,000 trips a year.
Yeah.
So there's 435 members of Congress, 365 days of the year, and we got at least 1,000 trips a year. I mean, my God, do the math. At any given point on any given day, there is going to be a congressional staffer that is on one of these lavish trips paid for because Congress, I think, intentionally put this loophole in there so that they didn't lose their, good relationships and all these, fancy dinners.
Are we going to be investigated for talking about this?
I hope so.
I mean, you understand where the whole industry of trying to tell these stories. that we're so at risk that, as we did it last week, we told the story of Hillary Clinton saying anybody that talks bad, anybody that takes a talking point that's used from Russia or China or Iran or Ireland, if it's a bad talking point, that we could be criminally indicted. Now, is it going to get to the point where we can't talk about congressmen who started out as nobodies, that all of a sudden are in Washington, D.C., and they're being wined and dined to the tune of God knows how many millions of dollars, okay, every year. How many trips did they make last year?
Over 1,000.
Okay.
Over 1,000.
Now, are we somehow interfering with the operation of government? Are we somehow stepping out too far as we criticize the government to someday we're going to have Hillary Clinton on the air saying, oh my God, they need to be indicted too. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And look, we almost had that here in the state of Florida.
Talk about that.
They had that piece of legislation that would have loosened the slander and libel laws to the point where if you criticized a member of Congress and, if you talked bad about them, basically, they'd be able to sue you. They would be able to sue your organization. They would be able to take you down. And of course, it was actually proposed by Republicans, and it was the right-wing media apparatus that now lives in Florida that shut that crap down real quick because they realized we're going to go down too.
But now it's even worse. Do you realize people in the EU are actually being jailed for the words that they speak that are critical of the government or critical? This is actually happening. And now the discussion is, well, maybe we should do that in the U.S. Maybe Pap and Farron shouldn't be able to talk so bad about congressmen. They're just doing their job. They're trying to make this a better country. Are they interfering with the free flow of democracy by criticizing these bottom feeders? I'm telling you, Farron, this is coming. We're not when you can look at what's going on in Europe. And you can say, well, let's see how it figures out in American politics. When Hillary got on a few weeks ago and said we need to start prosecuting people that have language that favors a particular country that's contrary to our best interests, then we ought to be able to put them in jail. That's where this is going. Disgraced former Senator Bob Menendez is begging the court to toss out his recent felony convictions by claiming that he actually had the right to be corrupt. He had the right to steal from people. He had the right to commit bribery. He had the right to put gold bars under his bed and stuff cash in his jackets to hide it. That was his right, Farron. What's your reaction to that?
We have seen so many high-profile court cases in recent years, for everybody from members of Congress to, former lawyers and, hell, even the former president. This might be the dumbest argument I think I've ever seen. And it truly is just dumb. And it shows how desperate he is because he had his lawyers march into court and tell the judge, listen, this guy had a right to take bribes from a foreign country that he then gave favors to because of a little thing called the speech or debate clause, which means if he is doing research for a pending piece of legislation or even just a future piece of legislation he may introduce, he has the right to do whatever the hell he wants. So they are trying to expand speech or debate beyond what it was created for and just say everything is legal if our people do it.
Yeah, it's called the official act exception. Right, the official act. He was saying when he was committing bribery, this is my official act. I'm speaking to you in my official act. I'm taking your gold bars and putting up under my bed to hide them as an official act. And under the interpretation of official act, that's appropriate. And you can't prosecute me. This dirtbag has been prosecuted, this is the second time he's been prosecuted. Yeah. He finally got him this time. This is not going to be overturned.
Well, what's funny too is that now this speech or debate argument actually runs contrary to what he said during his trial, because during his trial, he tried to say, well, it was all my wife. She did all this. Okay, well, she's not protected by speech or debate, buddy.
That's brilliant. In other words, I'm going to throw my wife under that. She did all this. Let her go to prison. This guy is such a dirtbag.
He is.
And if you look at his history, I'm always talking about this because if you really believe what I'm saying, and you'll take a look, He's one of these people that came into politics with nothing. I mean, he's a pauper. And all of a sudden, he starts building his career, and obviously we know around him, he's not only taking lobby money, he's taking bribery money. And he's a multimillionaire now, because we don't know how much of that multimillionaire has to do with bribery money. But it's become the norm now where these nothing people, I mean, that's the only way you can describe them. Absolute lack of character, have accomplished nothing in their lifetime. And all of a sudden, some party says, well, let's put their name up to run. Let's put Bob Menendez up. He's a loser, but we can make him look like a winner. And all of a sudden, he's in politics forever.
Yeah.
According to a new report, the FBI began spying on anti-war activists on U.S. soil after they protested the expansion of military base. This isn't the first time the FBI has been caught doing this. I mean, it's like, we're talking about a green issue here. This is a green space issue, just so you understand. That's what this, you know that, but the point being, so the viewers understand. This was about, we can't let you expand all of this territory, all of this area that's green space, and make it in a military facility. That's where it started, right?
Yeah, we're talking about Camp Grayling, and what they wanted to do was take, 140,000 acres of a national park and turn it into their military base. Specifically, I think it was a training base for the National Guard. Right. So National Guard from all over the country, let's bring them to Camp Grayling so we get all that economic money, all that generation of the revenue here. But a couple protesters, in fact, it was just two protesters, showed up one day when they were doing this recruitment. The recruiters went to lunch, they came, the protesters, they kind of switched out all of their flyers for flyers that say, do you want blood on your hands? Sign up today for the military. And then when the recruiters came back, they took ketchup bottles with red paint.
Which was stupid. Really.
And they sprayed their hands with the ketchup bottles and said, you have blood on your hands.
Yeah.
So these two people now sparked this massive FBI response where they tried to charge them with terrorism.
Yeah.
And even the local police were trying to say that it was a hate crime because this was, you hate law enforcement.
Yeah, they described it as a hate crime against law. But first of all, let me back up. There are limitations, okay?
Right.
You don't throw a pizza at the Mona Lisa.
Right.
You don't take crayons and, cut out the face of Mona Lisa. Sometimes they bring it on themselves. These two nut jobs probably have caused the movement more trouble than they're ever going to be able to pull out of. But what they've done is they've given this expansive machine, this anti-terrorism machine that the FBI just loves. I mean, you give me something to call terrorism and I'm going to rock your world. And unfortunately, I'm going to rock the world of all the people, the well-meaning people who are trying to accomplish something. The truth is, they had the high ground. Of course, you don't take 150,000 acres of green space and put it into a military facility. But these two, when you see this story, look at this story in other places.
Yeah.
The whole thing is nut jobs spray ketchup on FBI. I mean, of course, everybody's reaction, well, hell yeah. But they have the high ground here, and they gave it up. They gave it up. And so where does this go? How aggressive will the FBI and the CIA and all of these organizations are involved in this kind of thing?
Well, we've seen it even with this story. The FBI ended up mounting this very large presence in, or near, I should say, Camp Grayling. And then what happened, like you said, all of the other people, the well-meaning people who just, we showed up with our signs, or we showed up and we linked arms, or we signed petitions. All of those people suddenly became targets of the FBI, and the FBI began combing through their social media. They began
interviewing neighbors.
Right.
I mean, can you imagine? You're protesting about something you should be protesting about, and some cat in the FBI shows up at your neighbors. What do you think of Farron? Doesn't he do? He does a lot of ugly stuff about Trump. He's a left-wing commentator. What do you think about Farron? That's what they do.
Showing up at their places of employment.
Yes.
Making it to where the boss is like, hey, we can't have this happening around the office here or around the pizza parlor or wherever it is. But you bring up a good point too, because I've always said that. When your actions become the headline instead of the protest,
Exactly.
you've lost. Your actions can never outshine the movement.
We have always said this.
Yeah.
And but you're always going to have the outlier nut jobs, okay? Who say, yeah, I'm really going to accomplish something here. I'm going to take a razor blade to a piece of art. I'm going to take a hammer to a statue.
Yeah.
I'm going to do something outrageous, and that's really going to be good for us. Bullshit. It hurts everybody in the organization. And that effort that the well-meaning people in that organization are trying to put forward, it's just, they disappear. When you look at this story, you're going to see the story about the two nut jobs spraying ketchup and paint on an FBI guy. I mean, that's the unfortunate thing about it. Yeah. And it's an important movement.
It is.
You don't take 150,000 acres and just build a military base expansion on it. Congress promised that they would enact strong legislation regulating the use of artificial intelligence ahead of the election. But so far, those promises have been empty, totally empty. And with only a few weeks to the election, Congress has no choice. They can't get anything done. No. We are living in a world of deep fake. That's what this story is about, right?
Yeah.
Give me some examples. We were talking before. Some of these examples are so absurd.
You had the AI image that Donald Trump had shared that said, hey, Taylor Swift endorsed me. There's all these, Swifties for Trump. There's been these very weird videos that people have made that show Kamala and Donald as a couple with a child together. They look very happy in the video, but obviously it's not real. And of course, the biggest one, and somebody did get prosecuted for this, was when they used AI to recreate President Biden's voice,
right,
and sent that out to a bunch of voters, giving them misinformation about primaries and everything. So that one was really the big one. All the other ones are kind of funny and weird, but
that one was caught. That one was caught early enough to fix it.
Yeah.
What we're going to see, my prediction is this is the new October surprise. AI deepfake is the new October surprise. And the election's going to be over, and they're not going to be able to do a damn thing about it because it's done. All the damage is done.
Well, and you had Democrat Amy Klobuchar said, I got 3 pieces of legislation to do this. You had Todd Young, Republican from Indiana, who said, I've got legislation to do this.
Pay attention to it.
Yeah, Chuck Schumer said, well, we got a lot to do, guys. I don't know that we can really get to your much needed legislation. So you had both parties working on this issue because they do understand that this is a problem and it's a big deal. But I think Schumer is just so far behind, because of his age.
He's a dinosaur. He doesn't even understand AI.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know what those initials mean. But he is the gatekeeper right now for the Senate because he is the majority leader.
Yeah, I swear, if you were to ask him 5 questions about AI, he could maybe answer one, maybe.
Look, AI has some great uses. It's also a very dangerous tool for artists because it could absolutely destroy the income and the livelihoods of artists, people who, paintings or drawings or whatever. This is hurting them. But in other ways, AI can be a wonderful tool. It can be a useful research project.
Let me tell you how dangerous it is for the, I guess, the acting economy or the performer economy. There's already stories. They take 200 people, put them in a room, and they say, what is it you like about Tom Cruise? Let's talk about specifics. What do you like about his face? Well, I like his jawline. I like his eyes. Well, what do you like about his voice? I like the way his level of excitement rises and falls. What do you like about his mannerisms? Well, I like the way he turns and uses his hands. And then they take Tom Cruise and they create their own version, not a Tom Cruise. It won't be Tom Cruise. It's going to be an actor. And then on top of that, they create a storyline, right? You can take AI, all it does is scrapes 2,000 years worth of information.
Yeah.
And then it says, it can write an entire screenplay. I'll tell you who's going to get hit on this worse than anybody, even maybe so than the music industry, is going to be the acting industry. It's going to close down Hollywood. These people that are moving into acting right now, good luck, because this is a new replacement. And they've already got it fairly sophisticated. If you go online and you take a look at, just do a search on, let me see a total AI production, It's totally made up. The people are made up. The voices are made up. The plot is made up. You're going to see something startling.
Right. And that's the problem here too, because we have seen the AI that you and I could have access to by signing up and making an account. You get pictures with people with either 2 fingers and then 8 fingers over here. A lot of bugs to work out there, but there are far more sophisticated AI models and that's the one that they used with the Biden deep fake. They've used it for other kinds of deep fakes. They've tried to do deep fakes of the Trump assassination attempt. So the people with access to the smarter AIs, I guess we'll call them, they can do real damage in politics because it is almost impossible to distinguish what is real and what is not, as opposed to the ones you see floating around social media that are obviously not real. They don't have that problem.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned the music industry. I think they're safer than Hollywood. Yeah. Because of the original quality, Ed Sheeran. You don't create an Ed Sheeran. Ed Sheeran is he's an aberration. He comes up and creates this whole niche. Bruce Springsteen, same thing. Until you listen to his early stuff, you say, wow, that's different. Now, so that's the problem with AI and music. But AI in Hollywood, it's going to shut Hollywood down. I'm telling you, if these people that say, I want to be an actor, buddy, they need to understand what's going on with AI.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have, but all these segments are going to be posted right here on this channel in the coming weeks, so make sure you're subscribed. I'm Mike Papantonio. This has been America's Lawyer. We tell you stories every week that corporate media won't tell you because their advertisers don't allow them. If they tell the story, the advertiser is going to pull the money. They're going to pull the advertising money. Or their political relationships are so strong, it's so Republican or it's so Democrat, they can't color outside the lines of the talking points for that particular party. We don't have that problem here in either regard, so hope to see you next time.
That it had helped dirty money flow through its branches around the world, including at least 800...
Plaintiffs allege that the defendants provided money and medical goods to terrorist groups Hezbollah and Jaish al-Mahdi.
This is a well-organized business for these individuals that carry out these attacks. Terrorism is a business, and they run it like a business.
They knew about what was going on for a decade. They absolutely, no question about it, knew that HSBC was washing money. They had every reason to understand it was for terrorism and it was for drug cartels. Took no action whatsoever.
These banks are involved. Their accounts are connected, and they're using them to mask the transactions. The more complicated they can make the transactions, the more distance they can put between the bad guys and the seemingly legitimate purpose of these funds.
They pay $1.9 billion, which is a drop in the bucket compared to what they've made, and nobody goes to prison. These CEOs, these bankers that made this decision, they're safe at home. They know what they've done. It's resulted in the death of Americans, contractors and soldiers, not just hundreds, but thousands. And we look the other way because they don't look like criminals. The die is cast. The people that are responsible are on Wall Street.
And they don't look like criminals. It's almost a suspension of disbelief. Sometimes I'll have people call me and say, is this real? Do they really get away with this? Yeah, they do.